Kia ora, hello, I am Stephanie Christie. I'm a poet and a text artist. I live in New Zealand and we have been in lockdown now for 6 weeks and are just starting to ease out of it. I was part of a big project just before coming into lockdown, in which for the first time I did an installation. So it's like 3-dimensional poetry, and it was amazing for me to be working on a really big scale, doing visual objects that were based on words. When we came into lockdown, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And my partner had just recently been to China, and he gave me a sumi ink stick and brush. So without understanding calligraphy, but looking at the images and thinking about my own personal creative ambitions, I began to make lots of small works using that ink and graphite mixed. This was a very satisfying and interesting process. And before long, he decided to take part in a stay-at-home mural festival, which is painting a wall in the house. So I was terrified and excited because I've never done anything like that before. So then I decided to paint our lounge room wall. The words that I chose to use were, "I ache for an outcome, but cling to the complexity of trees," which for me is all about refusing to simplify and holding on to the need for the nuance and complexity of reality. I needed to practice my brush strokes on a bigger scale, so I turned the ping pong table into a place I could roll white paint onto brown paper to make canvases, and also a standing easel. When we get to see our families and friends again soon, the question that I want to ask is, what have you learned about yourself during lockdown? What have you learned about what really matters to you? About what you need? About how you actually work best? I think that we've learned a lot about ourselves in this time, and I'm really curious to hear people's reflections on this. I found social distancing, especially because of being in lockdown, to be an inner adventure. I've had to face elements of myself that I had been avoiding. One of the main things that I've got out of it is that I've become much faster at identifying and diffusing my inner critic while I am making. So that is an extremely useful thing to take out of it. I also find that because my work normally deals quite directly with reality and the things that are concerning me, like climate change and injustice, I was able to respond very quickly to the lockdown situation and make work that was actually in response to it. And I found that this has actually led to a lot of really positive feedback from people who have said that something I've made has helped them to identify and name and process something that's going on for them at the moment. I think this really highlights what art is able to do for us. So I think that without cultural creativity, human beings would really struggle to change, because how would we create new forms to fit a changing world? I do think that people who have a compulsive creative practice are really built to take the existing structures and then pull them apart and then remake them into something new that's more useful for this current situation. And I think that that is something I've seen an amazing amount of in this time. I think that we need to be changing our way of life radically and permanently, because this crisis that we're in, as awful as it is actually still minor compared to the bigger crisis of extreme climate emergency that is actually still coming, and we need to be taking action right now. I really don't know what the best way is for me to encourage this in myself and in others, and so I focus on making art because that's what I'm built for. That is where I process, that is where I change my values, change my thoughts so that I can adapt effectively to the changing world.